Hey, welcome back to Jamieson's Repair Shop. It's been a little while since I've done a video, and this video isn't a Thunderbird video. I'm gearing up the camper van to head down south, heading down towards Utah and those places like that. A little bit warmer climate, even though it's not bad here right now. So during this setup time for the RV, getting some electronics upgraded in it. What I've done, I bought a Renogy 100 amp hour battery, picked up a Renogy DC-DC charger, 50 amp, which also is an MPPT solar panel input as well. So I can charge off the alternator, I can charge off of the solar panels. And I have my 3 ammo box batteries as well, so I'm running approximately close to 170 amp hours, which isn't bad for that little van. Also installed a 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter, so we don't have to run the generator in when we're parked in places that don't like generators running, and we can still make coffee and use some of the less draw type of appliances like a little K-cup machine. And I have bought pretty much all Renogy stuff, and I like it. The only thing I didn't buy was a Renogy battery monitor, because I was sent one by a company, so it's right here, and they asked if I would do a review on it. And actually, it's pretty easy for me to do a review on these battery monitors from this company, because I've been using 2 of their battery monitors for about 5-6 years now. The older versions, and I've had great luck with them. They haven't failed me yet. A lot of functions in them that you can use a relay on, and you can control things through a relay. So you can disconnect the power if the voltage goes too low or too high, so it'll shut it down. I believe the Renogy one does that as well, but since I had them, I wanted to continue using this company because I really did like them. So what we're going to do here in this video is go through this one. Now this is an upgraded version of the one I had, and hey, you guys have been with me for a long time know that I started out this channel doing mostly these lithium batteries, and then I switched over to car repairs. So I still want to do some of this stuff. I like doing the electronic stuff. I'm not going to overwhelm the channel with electronic stuff, but I do like doing it, so I don't have a problem coming in here and doing a few every now and then. If it's not for you, then just skip over it. It's okay, it won't offend me. But I do get a lot of views on this kind of thing, and that's not what I'm after. I just like doing it. So let's get this set up, and we'll go through the box. And I really appreciate the JunTek. I think it's JunTek. Let's have a look here. I believe that's how it's pronounced. They were under a different name at one time, but they changed the name. And let's get set up and see what's in the box. All right, just a quick look at the old one I had. And like I say, I had this is, I'm sure, from 2017. And they're actually called Min He. And I believe it was the same company that did change names. I apologize to the company if I'm wrong. But this is the shunt that came with the original one. This is a Nissan Leaf stack that I built for our RV way back in the day. It ran about 55 amp hours roughly. It still works. I just wanted something a little cleaner and more modern. This one here, I would turn it on, but I need the USB, and there's a USB port in the old shunt right there. Anyway, so that's what the old one I had. So you get an idea what I'm trying to replace here. So let's get into what we have in this box here with the new battery monitor. So this is a Junctek model KH140F. You see that right there. All right, so that's what's in the box. I laid it out here, so we'll talk about it a little bit. There's the shunt right there. Easy to hook up. It's all on the negative side. Battery and load, pretty straightforward. There's the little pigtail right here that goes between the module. Goes right here on the module. It's all marked, very well marked. You can't mess this up. It's marked very well. So that goes between the shunt and the module. So that joins those two up. So like this, they will be like this. And then to add the display to all of this, you use this RS485 cable. It's like a phone cable. Plugs in the back, and it plugs into the bottom port. Oh, get out of the way there. Right here on this one. It's marked again. You can't miss it. The thermistor cable for temperature sensing. It goes on here. Again, well marked. So we've got the red wire here, and it's for powering up the module, the current measuring module. It's all in the instructions, very easy to see. And the last piece that comes in the puzzle, oh no, there was some more. There were some lugs. What did I do with the lugs? I had them here. Anyway, there were two big heavy 4-gauge lugs. I set them aside somewhere. Doesn't matter. They were just lugs for power cables. So getting back to this one, this is for setting up a relay. So if you're not doing a relay, you don't worry about this cable at all, but that's what it's for. So you have the plug that goes in the module here in this port right there. And then you would run this out to the relay. The red and yellow run the relay, and the other one is for ground. So that's that. That's all that's in there. So now let's get it all set up, and I'll show you where did those lugs go. I had those lugs somewhere here. Oh well, I must have set them aside. Oh, I found the lugs. I had them set off to the side. That's probably because I wasn't going to use them. But they're a nice heavy lug. They're 400 amp lugs. I'm sure they would take, I'm not sure what aught sized cable that is, but it's a pretty good and heavy one. Anyway, that was in the box as well. All right, that's everything that was in the box. Now I show you my very messy setup, but it works. This is only temporary for me. This is all going in the van, and it'll look a heck of a lot better than this. So if you're just using this as a battery monitor, no heater or relay, it's very simple. You have the brown cable coming from your negative post into the battery side of the shunt, and then from there it goes out to your load. In this case, my load is the heater, but yours would be going to whatever, even to the ground on the chassis, wherever it can get ground to run the rest of the equipment in the vehicle, or whatever you're doing with it. You have this cable, that's the one that had the two ends on it. It jumps over to the measuring module. Now I would like to say I have it set up to not run on external power. So I'm only using it on 2-wire right now. If you want external power, like a separate power supply to run this through this setup right here, you would have all these wires, these ports would be filled with a neutral and a ground, and not just the power. Then you would put that on 3-wire. But since I'm just using it as a 2-wire, it runs back, and I just tie it in with the power coming from the battery. So that leads me to, so if you didn't have this on here, you'd have to supply power to that from somewhere, right? So that's when you would switch it to 3-wire, and you would have power coming from it. You can do it the same way as I have and just run that. That's what that red wire in the bag is for, to run it up. You could run it to a power supply. It's totally up to yourself. And then of course the RS485 cable, like a phone style cable, goes into the back of the monitor, remote monitor. And that's really all it goes to this remote monitor, is that. And I just want to mention, you don't need to have that on hooked in at all if you're just going to use the app on your phone. It's not required to have that hooked up. It is nice if you have a van like me, you could put it up and you could just take a glance at it every now and then. But if you're just going to use the app on the phone, you don't need to hook that up, so there's one less thing to run. So now, if you're going to run a relay, that's what that other wire was for, the 3-wire with the open end. So you would wire that in here. You wire that in here, and it goes over to your relay. So the input side of the relay. I'm using a solid state relay. It's AC or DC to DC relay. And it has enough amperage. I think it's a 200, up to 200 volt. It's an SSR25, so it's a 25 amp DC to DC relay. And that'll run this unit right here. And then right here, this wire, this is the thermistor, the temperature sensing unit. And you can see this gets very hot. As you can see, it burnt the cover on that. But just be careful when you're doing that stuff. This gets very hot really quick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it on just manually on the display here and show you how fast this actually does hook up. And I'll show you, I'll see if I can get them both together. So you'll see on the relay, when I hit OK, what we're looking for is this to turn from off to on up here in the corner. And that's the same on the app on the phone. It's on the opposite side. There's like a little button there. So when I turn this on, that'll change to on, and this light will come on. That means the relay's activated. So let's do that. I'll do very quickly, and then you can watch the temperature. Right there, it's at 35 degrees right now. You'll watch that; it'll climb very quickly. So just take a quick look. I'll only leave it on for a couple seconds, so just watch. There we're on. The light's on the relay, and that temperature won't take long to climb. It's throwing heat out there pretty quick. It's drawing 123 watts of power. Okay, I can feel it on the back of my hand already. So at 37 degrees, so that heats up pretty quick. It will climb after you shut it off too. You can still see it climbing up too. There's a little bit of delay in the recording of it. So that's that. That's how that works, and that's the purpose of having the relays. You can activate other devices. This is too hot. Just so you're thinking that you're going to put this on the battery or something like that, and keep the battery warm. Don't do that. This is only plastic. This is far too hot to do that with. So put this. What I'm planning on doing, the case that this sits in, this battery, is metal. And I'm going to put it on the outside of the metal just to heat the case itself and try to give some heat inside. This may not work very well, but you don't want this stuck to the battery. It'll melt the battery. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. But that's it for the setup on it. I know it's messy, but that's basically it. So if you're only doing just the shunt and the module and the display, it's very simple. Just tie it into your existing negative ground wire. Hook up this, hook up your display module, and if you want to use the thermistor cable, you can do that. You don't even have to. So really, it's up to yourself. I like it on there because it gives you a reading of the temperature. So that's it. So now that's all done. Let's go in and see how the app works. Okay, so you find the app on the Play Store. I'm using the Android system, so it's on the Play Store for me. Maybe iOS might be different for you. Will be different for you, rather. So now you go in there and you install the app. Let it do its thing. Then you open the app. Now it does ask for your location, and I've tried doing it without saying yes to the location, and it won't let me do it. So while I'm using the app, I'll show my location. However, you don't need to give it access to anything else, so I don't allow the rest of it. So now you're in the app, and this is the part that doesn't really show up in the instructions, is how to actually find your device. Even though it says search right up on the top corner, you'll see top right corner says search. So that's where you'll push search, and then your device will show up. And then this one's BTG002. You'll select that device, and bang, it'll switch over. There it is. So I've already set up the parameters for this 100 amp hour battery that I'm using, and it's down at 22% left in it. It needs a recharge. So that's it. That's how you set up the app. It's pretty simple. The key thing is to remember to push the search in the upper right corner to find it. Don't worry about going into Bluetooth, any of that kind of thing. Most of the what you're going to do in this dashboard now is pretty straightforward unless you have a relay hooked up. Most of it is pertaining to the relay. But if you're just monitoring the battery, it's very simple. You have in here, you have your voltage, and you can set the range. So I have mine set from 0 to, I think it's 50, no, it switched on me. So I'll do it again. I had it set for 0 to 15 volts. That's the range that this battery operates in. So let's just do it again. So 0 to 15. So as soon as you do, it looks like, oh, as soon as you go out of it or go back in, it loses the features. So let's just get back to 15 volts and then okay. Then the meter will change. And the current, this battery can, it'll charge at 50 amps maximum input. There's a 100 amp output. So I'm going to put it at 50 for input. Actually, I'm going to go 100 because then it gives you both sides. So it'll do input and output because it's a double-sided amp meter. Go to 100. Come on there. Grab that guy. Head him. Just do 100. It's a little touchy. Again, 95. There we go. So now it changes the amp meter up top where it says current. You'll see it goes to 100 on each side. So when it's discharging, it can go up to 100 amps, and when it's charging, it can go up to 50 amps. The rest, the battery percentage remaining, it was 22%, so I'm just going to add that again. So it's still at 22%, and I know that because the Renogy, this smart battery by Renogy has Bluetooth capability, and it reads the battery state. So I went in there and checked the battery state, and it's 22%. This will change for me because I'm going to add 3 more batteries on, but for now we're just talking about the 100 amp hour battery. And this is where you would set down in here. Below the little battery diagram, you can set the amount of amp hours, and this is actually a 100 amp hour battery, like I said. So you go there, and when I have the other 3 batteries in there, I will modify that to reflect the other 3 batteries added onto that. So it'll be about 166 amp hours for me, roughly. You can test that by discharging all the batteries and charging them all back up and seeing how many amp hours go in that's required to charge it up, and then you'll know how many amp hours your bank is. And that's going to be different for each person. And there's a few other things, like there's you can't touch that. The power is set, electricity is set. Like you can clear the data. All that stuff is all done. The buttons right below the power and the electricity consumption. So it'll read what you're using and how much is going in and how much is going out, rather. And then I have the temperature set. Temperature thermistor is attached, so it's showing 25 degrees Celsius where the battery is sitting right now, and the amount of runtime. So that's for just monitoring the battery. And then you have a few things at the bottom. Elapsed amp hour value, and there's those things you can play with them, resistance and all that stuff. Those are just monitoring devices, parts of this device. So to get into the actual meat of it, when you put a relay on, this off button where it says off at the top right corner, well, not right up the top, but just above the current screen, you'll push the off and on, and that'll turn a relay on and off. So I have a relay hooked up, and I'll show that happening in a second. So off and on for the relay, so that will activate whatever you want, and I will be using a relay. I plan to anyhow, for a small heater for the battery box. So once that's done, you can go into the curve settings, and it records what's going on there. I haven't done any of that kind of recordings yet, so Yours will be different anyhow. And then you go into the settings. Now these are all pertaining to the ability to shut off and turn on the relay. So if you're not using a relay, most of this stuff it's not important for you because it's relay controlled. So you have the output voltage, so you can set the output over voltage rather, the OVP, over voltage protection. It's OVP, over voltage protection. So for the input, as it says there. It took me a second to figure that out. Anyway, so you would set, if you are running this to control the charging part of it, you could set it so it would shut the voltage off, shut the relay off if it hit too much voltage coming in. I'm not going to bother with that part, so that's okay for me. And then there's the low voltage protection, so which is the input under voltage. So if you're not getting enough volts, you would set the parameters where you want it to be. Over current protection, input positive current protection. So if you're wanting it to shut down at, say you only want to charge 50 amps, but you're capable of charging 100 amps, you would set it to 50. That kind of thing. Or input external temperature protection. So if again, this is all based on the relay being in place. So you could shut off your circuit if the temperatures go too high. I'm not going to bother with that. And over input over power protection in watts. So same deal. You can set what you need to be there. Whatever works for you. And this is an input negative over current protection in amperage. So it'll shut down if you're below the amount of amperage you want it to be. Most of these things most people aren't going to use, but they're nice to have just in case you might be in a scenario where you will use it. All right, the protection revert time. That's the amount of time that you can automatically have the module reset the relay. And if you don't want it to automatically reset, say you had a fault over voltage or something like that, you could reset it in so many seconds. So it would just automatically do it, so you don't have to bother with it. But you have to be careful with that, because if it's in a fault situation, you have to understand why it's in a fault situation. Sometimes it doesn't mean anything. Maybe a light hooked up to it or whatever, and it will just go back off again in so many seconds. Just a warning to you. That's going to be however you set up your relay and what you're using it for and how important that is to you. And this is the relay module. So you can set, this is the one that's important to me, is how the relay module is set when it powers up the battery monitor. I have it set as always off, because when I want it to fire up, I don't want my little heater to be on. I want to be able to control that. So when this module fires up, I'll have the module set as always off. And if you want it always on, then you can do it always on. And then the delay time, it'll delay from when anything happens from the battery monitor. And again, this is all relay concerning the relay that you've set up. If you set it up. If you didn't set it up, this has nothing to do with what you're doing. You're just monitoring. And then there's the address settings on the top left corner of the actual display on the first springboard. It'll be, I think it's P01, and that's all preset. If you have multiple of these, you might want to change this input setting. It's not necessary if you're only using the one. Because if you have more than one, you can select which one you want. That's how I understood that. That's what it is like in the older versions. Just a little bit more difficult to get to it. And then there's the firmware upgrade. I haven't been able to do a firmware upgrade. It just keeps spinning, so I'm not going to touch that one because it locks down everything until you get out of it. I'm going to keep trying to get a firmware upgrade, but for now I'm going to leave that one alone. And then you can go into here, and it gives you the version. So you could go online. Maybe this is the most current version, is 1.3.22. And then there's a link to the website. So if you want to go to their actual website, and it comes up, for me it was coming up in Chinese, but you can put it in English. It's a selection, which I have it in there now, and it gives you access to their their products, of course. Then there's also, I believe in here, technical, where you can go in and get manuals for these things. And that's pretty much it. It's a nice little rig. It's very simple to use. I can't stress that enough, how simple this is to use and how simple it is to set up.